Hello and welcome back to Res Gaming in a new Elden Ring build video. I hold in my hands the controversial weapon of the Axe of Godrick, which since patch 1.09 has actually received multiple big relevant buffs and is actually feeling a lot better. Not only have they improved the attribute scaling of the Greataxe weapon type as a whole, but they've also increased the speed, range and recovery time of various attacks of this weapon. Now it is feeling really effective and really quick in two-hand, but in one hand, my god, do these attacks come out quick, and in PvP, that's feeling so glorious. The main buff though is the Ash of War. I command thee, kneel. This three-part combo is a lot faster. In fact, they've increased the attack generation speed so that shockwave is coming out a lot quicker. How can we make this work the best it can in both sides of the content? Well, we've got a build to do with successive hits for exactly that purpose. And when it comes to PvP, off the back of the 1.0 poise rating of various attacks for the Greataxes, you're able to stagger enemies pretty consistently with this build, even at a medium poise rating, which can be devastating if you can combo off some attacks, which you absolutely can with the pace of attacks we have here. So it's a lot better. Let's talk about how it performs, starting with PvP. The Axe of Godrick and a suitable build in PvP. This performs actually really impressively. I did not expect it to feel this smooth and good in PvP, and I think that comes down to the weapon type and our incantations that we chose for this build. You can really feel the poise changes back off 1.07 with the basic attacks of this weapon really staggering enemies. The one-hand slams of the axe is so quick that people just don't seem to expect it. When they roll the first one, maybe the second one, they just don't expect the third and fourth and fifth to just follow up so consistently, so quickly that they don't get to trade after rolling the first one or two. So this weapon type is feeling good as a whole, and that makes Godrick's feel pretty good too. We can reach pretty reasonable damage of say 500 or higher per hit, and if you rack that up quickly, even successive hits, it gets higher and is very deadly. Particularly, I love the running attacks of this weapon because they come out so quick. With the improvements in 1.09 to the range of certain attacks, they're catching people in ways they don't expect. Whether it's a running heavy or running light, it comes out fast and is very effective at creating a lot of harass. Because with the good recovery, you're able to throw a running attack out, they dodge it, throw another, they dodge it, throw another. They just can't really let up the pressure and you stick to them with the running attacks. We can change the pace of these attacks by one-handing or two-handing, helping us catch people on rolls or surprise them in trade timings. Yeah, the weapon type as a whole is just feeling really smooth in PvP. And this feels so much better when we're using something like Beastial Sling, which remains, despite the various nerfs to it, a mega fast, close to medium range harass for good chip damage. Between 50 to 200 damage per use, that racks up pretty quick when you can stand in combo. And if you do it off a running attack, the range is also very respectable. If you're dealing with someone with low poise, like light armor, this will also stagger them still, which is basically a death sentence for anyone that deals with this because it comes out so quick, and if it staggers, it can chain combo. If someone runs into you when you're using the sling combo, you can pull out, say, the really quick one hand of the axe, mixing up the timings of the rolls they need to do and hitting pretty damn hard. The Stone of Gurranq is a very nice long-range harass and very spammable because it comes out pretty quick and you can chain it into itself. There's also reasonably good poise on it as you are throwing sort of a giant rock, but the downside of this is its poor tracking. If they're running to avoid, you're never going to hit this because you have to free aim it otherwise. It does work as a good way to interrupt people backing away to say take a flask or cast a spell or incantation at you though. So between a mix of the really reliable weapon attacks and basics, the moveset of the weapon type as a whole, mixed with Beastial Sling and maybe a bit of Stone Gurranq for long range, this is a really solid PvP build. But what we're really wondering, of course, is the Ash of War. I command thee kneel. You see, this was buffed in 1.09 to increase the attack generation speed, meaning the first hit of the combo, the three-part combo, actually comes out a lot faster, making it potentially viable in PvP. Also, based on a previous buff, you can roll cancel out of it, meaning on the first slam you can roll out, on the second you can roll out, or let the whole thing go. This is great for baiting because you can send out the first one just trying to fish, maybe it misses, you roll out, they come in to punish you, you're already recovered and you're attacking again. If you are able to trade and catch people out with this and actually hit with the Ash of War, you're not going to get great damage, sadly. It's maybe 300 plus per hit, leading up to say 700 damage for the first two hits of the 3-hit combo. I imagine the third hit will probably hit the hardest, but you're never really going to see that happen. And also, you know, it is a shockwave attack, so players can jump it, and that actually happened to me in a PvP duel. So it's definitely a lot better, and you can use it. Best used when they're rolling around you trying to avoid attacks, then you send out a slow slam, which surprises them with a different pace. But the payoff is not that big because the damage is not that big. Despite all that, I'm pretty shocked at how effective this build feels in PvP, just because of Beastial Sling and the insane speed of the basic weapon attacks, mixed with the now very impressive range of the weapon type. People seem to just not respect it, and I can understand why when you see this weapon just not thinking it's going to be that scary. But the truth is, it's got really reliable 1 or 2 hand combos with great range and reliable damage. Mix that with just the sling and you can catch people out with this build really easily. So I do recommend you give this a try in PvP, but now let's talk PvE. This is actually a consecutive hit build, meaning the more hits you get in a row, the more AI you have, and that works with the Ash itself. As you command people to kneel, you hit once, twice, 3 times, and actually the first 2 come out pretty quick. Therefore, it's actually pretty effective to use just the first 2 fast slams, and then roll out using that buff where you can cancel out with a roll, to then just go for another one, going for the first and second hit again. This will raise the power of each individual Ash hit, as well as any basic attacks you use between this, and they are very effective. What's still hilarious about this Ash is that, again, it is a shockwave, so much like in PvP, PvE enemies can technically jump the Ash entirely and avoid all the damage by doing so, making it a bit of an awkward Ash in certain boss fights where they're quite agile as they move and jump about a bit. The power of it is relevant though, and quite fun to use as a different type of attack compared to many builds, but it's quite awkward to use at times. On the bright side, it can and will stagger enemies leading to criticals, which is very nice. And naturally, it is meant to be a AoE ability, and that is where it really shines in the open world. As a weapon, the basic attacks are much like in PvP, fast and nice damage at that, a very reliable and quick way to punish even in the super small punish windows for even just 1 or 2 swings. Meanwhile, the incants kind of swap in relevance. Where Sling is obviously amazing in PvP, it's the Stone of Gurranq that finds great use in PvE. You're able to chip away health from very long range, and even stagger well with the spammable nature of these rocks if you can throw enough of them. Whenever you get the space to do so, throwing out like 3 rocks pretty quick is going to be good damage, and you find a lot of opportunity to do that in the open world and various boss fights. So overall, it's a reliable and effective build in PvE, with nice stagger potential on the various attacks, be it Ash basics or the incants. The Ash has potential, but I still feel that it's missing perhaps the damage, or more specifically poise damage, that it needs to be truly relevant, considering that bosses and players can jump it. They're obviously trying to make this weapon and Ash work though. They've specifically buffed it twice over the last few patches. This of course brings us to the part where I explain the build. So we have the Axe of Godrick, of course. Our seal of choice is obviously the Clawmark seal. This is what's boosting our Beastial incantations. For our armor set, we are wearing whatever can give us the most poise. The Tree Sentinel armor is fantastic for that, because while a heavier set, it is giving extra poise compared to other armors in the same bracket. We're just barely able to put on this helmet without going heavy load, and it does give us 1 poise. For the talismans, we have the Shard of Alexander to improve the Kneel Ash of War. Our successive hits comes from the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia and the Millicent Prosthesis, which is also giving us a nice extra 5 dex. Lastly, to wear this heavy armor for the poise, the Great Jar's Arsenal is a great pick. The Flask of Wondrous Physic has Thorny Cractear in it for the successive attack power, and then the other is whatever you'd like. Our incantations are obviously Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength for the damage increasing for PvE. I don't really find myself using these in PvP unless the enemy starts buffing in front of me. And then Beastial Sling for the quick strikes, very useful in PvP, less useful in PvE, but still good to finish enemies off. And of course, the Stone of Gurranq for the big hits and the range potential that has. Lastly, the stats. At level 150, we have 60 Vigor as always if we are doing PvP. 22 Endurance is what's allowing us to just barely wear all of this without going into heavy load. As it is a quality build, we have 45 Strength and 45 Dexterity, but we're getting an extra 5 Dex from our Talisman. Lastly, the 25 Faith to use all of our incantations. As always, you could lower your Vigor to maybe 50 if you're just doing a PvE build, and go harder on the Strength and Dex. But there you have it. That is our overview and build for an Axe of Godrick build in 1.09. Overall, I am shocked to find this is a very effective and pretty fun build to play in PvP. I was not expecting that. I was expecting it to be kind of a tough one to play in PvP, to be honest, and then be a solid good option in PvE. And the truth is, it is an acceptable fine option in PvE, but it really stands out that it's mega effective in PvP in a way I just did not expect. The pace of the attacks, the improved range, especially for catching people at medium and trade ranges. The recovery allows you to mix 1-hand, 2-hand, and the sling attacks so smoothly that people just can't seem to keep up with it. And while the damage isn't crazy high like a colossal weapon, it's certainly deadly when you can get a combination of these off. And while, yeah, in both sides of the content, the Ash still just doesn't hit as hard as it really feels it should, and is still pretty hard to land consistently. You can land it now, and it is something you can do from mind games where you can bait and roll out because of the improvements of a previous patch. I wouldn't be surprised to see another specific buff to this weapon's Ash of War. They seem to really want to make it work, and we're just not there yet, but maybe the next update. If you have enjoyed the build and video though, drop a like so we can keep making more videos like this, and until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, we'll see you in the next one.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.